Sherry, I am so glad that you are here today to talk about how athletics teach us to be courageous. And I cannot think of a more qualified person to be able to have this discussion as an athlete, a two-time Olympian yourself, and as a coach, National Basketball Coach of the Year. So you bring the athlete perspective, the coach perspective.
Mhm.
What lessons have you learned from athletics that enable you to think and act courageously?
Wow, that's a big question. Way to throw a softball right off the bat. No,
And we're into the episode.
well, what I love about that is, and you and I have talked about this before. Is it really makes you get comfortable with the uncomfortable, like the discomfort, because any growth as an athlete comes from pushing the edge. You don't get to settle in and say, well, I learned this, period. It's always the next, so as an athlete, if you want to get the next level, or if you want to even stay on the top, you can't stop with what you know. You have to find the very next skill that's going to keep you on the top, or the next skill that's going to get you to the top. So it's that awareness of, I can't live in a comfort zone. I have to constantly live on the edge so that I can get to the next place. And of course, that's just one thing, but I think that's the biggest thing that many people don't understand about being an athlete. It gets you prepared for the rest of your life, and that space of knowing that there is a next that I always have to be going to in order to be, and I'm talking not just about skills. I'm talking about, things like happiness. What's the next skill I need to know to stay happy?
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, I am really nodding along there, Sherry, with everything that you're saying. I am far from an Olympic or elite athlete, but I do love my running and triathlons and endurance events. And yeah, it's something about that athlete's mind. I'm always looking for, like, what's the next challenge? Okay, I've covered that distance. What's the next distance? Oh, could I do that one faster? What if I take on some more challenging terrain? And it's always putting us into a place of learning and
Hmm.
growth and figuring things out and figuring yourself out. Okay, I've showed up to the gym without my cycling shoes. I'm supposed to do a cycling workout now. Okay, do I have time to go back? Do I do something different? Now I've got to problem solve
Right.
in the moment.
Well, I think the biggest thing about that, I talk about being an athlete, and when we talk about athletes, we think about like winning and championships and trophies and all that kind of thing. The thing it teaches you is something beyond that, because life is full of challenges. And in fact, we're going to have 48 life disruptions in a lifetime. This is according to a guy named Bruce Feely, who wrote a book called Life in the Transitions, Making Change at Any Age. So disruption is like, you break your leg. And so for 3 months, you can't play or work the way you normally would. Or you have like COVID that lasts for 4 weeks, or, you have a child that's being bullied at school. So those are life disruptions. You got to think about that, 48 in a lifetime. We can't settle in. Well, beyond that, there's 3 to 5 life quakes that we're going to experience. So what's a life quake? A life quake is a life disruption on steroids. So it's the injury or illness that changes your life forever, forever. It's the lifelong dream that blows up in your face. It's that loved one that betrays you in such a way that seems unforgivable. So think about that. Look, so if you learn that you have to figure out how to overcome those challenges, that you can't settle in, and athletics helps you learn that. You're constantly challenged by opponents, by your coach, by your teammates, and you have to be able to get through that challenge. And it teaches you to those life challenges that we're all, let me underline all going to have. It
Yeah.
helps you learn to prepare, to get ready, and to not just lay down and die when some incredible life quake comes your way.
Yeah. Sherry, those are incredible statistics that you give us. And I want to talk a little bit about how do we practice and kind of build some resilience, some courageous muscles
Mhm.
to be ready for the life disruptions and the life quakes that are coming. First, let me tell listeners a little bit more about you, Sherry.
Okay.
Sherry Winn is a two-time Olympian, National Basketball Coach of the Year, Amazon three-time best-selling author. She is an in-demand, internationally renowned speaker who frequently speaks for up to 14,000 people at a time, including at companies such as StubHub, Anytime Fitness, New York Life, Edward Jones, and Technicolor. Sherry is known as a leader of leaders and a visionary of visionaries who has written 5 books, including her just released, has been much anticipated book entitled Winning Leadership. There it is, 7 Secrets to Being a Truly Powerful Leader. We will put the link in the show notes. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Now let's get to the stuff. I mean, if people are listening, let's get to
Yeah.
things that really, give them an opportunity to change their lives. Let's
You're
do that.
you're so full of practical and inspiring guidance that yeah, that was my desire to get right to it. But I do want to say this is the first episode in a new series on the Courage of a Leader podcast called Inspiring Leadership Lessons from Top Athletes. I know I get inspired by by athletes and those involved in athletics. And I think there are great lessons that translate to our work lives as leaders. So
Mhm.
we're here to explore that. So the life disruptions, Sherry, the life quakes are coming.
Right.
How do we practice? How do we build resilience or courageous muscles?
hmm I love that you asked that question because I just finished a talk on that. And so it's one of my favorite talks is about resilience, and I call it from tailspin to Olympian. It's those stories that
Tailspin to Olympian.
from tailspin to an Olympian. And so it's resilience from tailspin to Olympian. And so giving people those skill sets that I learned, I was forced to learn from, the deep dive that I had in depression and suicidal thoughts, to, a motivational, inspirational person, a
Mhm.
speaker, author, those kind of things. But here's the deal. Since we know challenges are coming, this is the human experience. There's no need to get mad at it. It's just a human experience. We're all going to have a human experience because that's who we are. What is important is what do we come, the toolkit we have to meet these challenges, these life quakes, these life disruptions. And so the better your toolkit is, the easier it is to get through these. Not to say it won't be, a period of time where you're a little mad, because of course, like that's a human experience, a human emotion.
Mhm.
But why stay in it when you've got the toolkit to get through? So one of the things I like to do is talk about the power of gratitude.
Nice.
And this is something that we could all teach ourselves because gratitude leads to hope. And it's when people are hopeless, that's when people become suicidal. That's when people get depressed. Hopelessness leads to those things. Well, how do you keep hope? It starts with gratitude. And gratitude is a learned tool. So it starts the day like before I get out of bed, I just start with a thank you.
Nice.
Before I get out of bed, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for this body. Thank you that I get up to get another day in this life. Thank you that I get to a new adventure today. Thank you for yesterday and the things that happened to me yesterday that I learned from. Thank you. So it just starts with this idea of gratitude. And so we can do a rampage of thankfulness where we just as many things as we can, like
Mhm.
just as fast as we can roll them off. We can do that. We can do a gratitude journal. So, Oprah, I listened to Oprah once who said she wrote down 5 gratitude statements every night before going to bed, which
Mhm.
I think is wonderful because you're reflecting back and looking at it, recognizing it. And so, Amy, I go, well, if Oprah can do 5, I can do 10. Like I was going to
I can go on a rampage.
yeah, watch me. I'll do 30 a day. But what I discovered was, the rule is you cannot repeat.
Ah, okay.
So you have to find 10 new. And it really became a huge challenge for me because I had to notice the small things,
Yeah.
right? I
The
had to notice the
practice.
small, the practice of, something I hadn't seen the day before. To really stretch ourselves to look at gratitude, have a gratitude journal before you go to bed at night or first thing in the morning. You can practice gratitude when you get to that moment that you're mad or angry. What is something to be grateful for right now? Like switching that into gratitude because, we're vibrational beings. And as vibrational beings, that means we're energy, like the energy, the emotions that we have are energetic emotions, right?
Mhm.
So one of the lowest emotions we can have is guilt and shame. Those are the 2 of the lowest emotions we can admit. One of the higher ones is gratitude.
Nice.
So
Yeah.
switching into that, right? And as soon as we switch into
Yeah.
gratitude, hope comes. And
Yeah.
When we're drowning in, the challenge, we can't see hope. Well, you want to see hope, go to gratitude.
Lovely. I want to underscore some of the things that you just said, Sherry, that don't get mad at it. That's a
Mm,
really powerful because it,
mm,
it can be easy when something tragic, unexpected, something we really don't want, we've been working towards the opposite,
mm.
comes our way. It's really easy to feel like this is unfair. Why me? Right? But you just told us everybody has 48 life disruptions and a handful of life quakes coming their way. So it's just the human experience. It's just
Right.
what's so. And I think remembering that can help us not get into that mindset of why me? Why is this happening?
Right.
What's going on here? Instead of getting into something that's more forward focused. I
Hmm.
feel that practicing the gratitude, and that's really interesting what you said about the energetic levels, Sherry, because
Hmm.
gratitude is something we can practice in a moment.
Right.
And if we can go from a lower energetic vibration to something that's much higher
Hmm.
in an instant,
Yeah.
right? That changes the trajectory of our day, of the next
Oh,
hour, of the next interaction that we're going
sure.
to have.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, so somebody taught me a long time ago, the difference between pain and suffering. Like I developed chronic pain when I was 35, and it was there. Like I didn't know how it got there. I didn't go look for it. It wasn't an accident that happened. It
Yeah.
just boom. So pain is something that's that is physiological.
Yeah.
Suffering, that's a choice. So the difference is, do you want to suffer through your pain, or do you want to find a way of ease through it?
Yeah.
And that is the difference, because if the pain exists, and sometimes it exists for a long time for us, right? I mean, there's something that happens to us. Do we want to stay in the anger? Do we want to stay in the depression? Do we want to stay in the sadness, the frustration around it? Or do we want to find some piece of joy around it? Do we want to find some piece of happiness around it? How
Mhm.
do we want to experience the day? Because that's the choice we have, is how we want to experience the day, even if we're going and living in this challenge.
Yeah.
So that's the piece that people will go, whoa, but I have the pain. Yes, yes, you do. Not debating that. We're
Yeah.
debating how you want to feel about it.
Yeah. So Sherry, if we could go to your personal
Mhm.
experience there, you have chronic pain
Right.
happening. It's there.
Mhm.
How did you move away from
Mhm.
suffering?
Well, so let me say this. So I developed chronic pain at age 35. I couldn't sit, stand, or walk without pain, right? And so, as an athlete, like you're taught, like, you know, get through the pain, like, it's
No
okay.
pain, no gain. Let's
You
go.
break a finger, like you break a nose, you're still playing, right? And you do that. But in chronic pain, there's no into it. And what happens is the first day it's okay, I can get through it. Second day I can get through it. Third day I can get through it. 1 week goes by and you're like, A month goes by, you're like, whoa. A year goes by, you're like, right. That kind of consistency in a pain is so much different than the pain's getting better. You can feel an end to it. Like there's a difference. Like the first time I got chronic pain at age 35, I got depressed, angry. My anger. Yeah, that's my survival mechanism. And I really did not handle that well. But what I found was, like, I was being miserable, and the people didn't want to be around me. Who wants to be around a miserable person? No matter if you're in pain or not. Who wants to hang around that?
Mhm.
So, instead of having friends, I was pushing friends away. Well, in your deepest need of a human being, you need connection. Pushing people away is not a good way to respond to that.
Mhm.
And so even though it's the worst thing that ever happened to me, I would say it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because that's where the journey of, really diving deeper into emotions and the emotional work, and, empathy for myself. And I would say love for myself,
Mhm.
right? At that, and accepting myself, learning how to self-validate, how to have unconditional love for myself, which then could be given to other people. So, and all these things, like you go, oh, it's terrible, but what a blessing.
Ugh.
Man, what a blessing, right? You couldn't sit in the minute, in the moment, but now the person I became as a result of those things,
Mhm.
and what I can offer now as a result of those things, what a true blessing that was, right?
Yeah, I heard a few more tools for the toolkit, Sherry, and what you were just sharing. I mean, first of all, the empathy for ourselves, the acceptance. I think it's really easy. I sometimes call it the double whammy, Sherry. Like there's some negative circumstances going on, and then
Hmm.
we take out a big imaginary club and start hitting ourselves with it, right? Like, what if I must have done something wrong to get myself here, or I'm so frustrated with this. I shouldn't feel frustrated. Like
Hmm.
we have negative emotions and then we beat ourselves up for
Sure.
those emotions. And like if our body's in chronic pain, like we can get mad at our own body,
Right.
our own selves. So how do you practice that empathy, that acceptance? How do I treat myself in ways so I'm
Right.
able to move forward? And then you also talked about connection,
Hmm.
right? And this is maybe a personal inquiry for everybody. How do you create that connection to
Hmm.
what's important in your life, to the
Hmm.
people in your life, to work or activities that
Right.
fuel you? Uh,
Yeah.
Connection. Okay.
Well, I think, and as you do, Amy, I work with a lot of leaders, and so,
Yeah.
people always go like, "Oh, leadership skills," and so, yes, I can do all that. Like, let's talk about how do you delegate, how do you figure out what your priority question is. Let's give you your values, what your values, what's your mission statement, your personal mission, all that stuff. Okay, great. But really, what makes a difference is how do you really love yourself unconditionally? How do you validate yourself in such a way that you're not needy going out there in your connections, right? So how do you get your ego, in your back seat? Well, all of that is the work of, what we're talking about right now. All of that's the work of when you love yourself so much, right? That you don't need anybody else to love you. You
Mm,
don't need it,
mm,
right? You enjoy it. You enjoy it. Well, connecting with people means, A, you're not a taker, you're a giver.
mm, mhm.
And when you start with that, there's a different connection to be had. And so as a leader, if you're needing things from people, and that shows up in so many different ways, right? I mean, you can become a control person, micromanager.
Yeah.
You are, incredibly demanding in a negative way. You overwhelm people, you demean them. All those are like you're really looking for that control, which comes back to I need something from you. I don't have it enough in me. So I'm taking versus giving,
Mhm.
right? So that comes back to all of that, but that's internal work. I mean, that's the work that I think the highest leader of leaders get to. It's what I've written in my book, Winning Leadership: 7 Secrets to Being a Truly Powerful Leader. All of that, Amy, is you have to first, like, you got to do all this work on yourself so that you show up differently for other people. And so that life experience through your life disruptions and life quakes can still be such a happy experience.
Ah, yes. I love how you talk about this, Sherry, because this can sound like a nice aspirational concept. Love yourselves, please. Right? I do. I want everybody to love themselves
Sure.
just to start their morning with themselves, with love. You are also pointing to so many reasons why we want to practice that because it impacts our ability to be powerful in
Mm-hmm.
the world, right? Because we're not needy, so then we're not the control leader, we're not the micromanager. We're able to give. We're not creating drama. I think it also creates a foundation by which you can be objectively self-aware. If
Absolutely.
I love myself, then I'm better able to say, Amy, you're really strong and great here, and you are not so strong and great here. And
Mm-hmm.
here are the things that trigger you. And,
Mm-hmm.
here are the situations where you need to regulate and be aware
Right.
of yourself a little bit so
Mm-hmm.
that I'm not operating on some automatic pilot and you are all getting the I don't know, the unintended consequences of, me not being aware of something that's triggered me or frustrated me or made me feel insecure.
Absolutely. I mean, that all comes internally, right? That's the work that we all have to do. I mean, for our families, right? I
Mhm.
mean, for your partner, your relationship there. for everybody. If you're a leader, we're all leaders because we lead our families, we lead ourselves, but it shows up differently. I mean, your power shows up differently. When I say power, I'm not talking about, demand, like, well, I'm going to get you. And power is
Oh no, yeah.
humility.
Yeah.
Power is kindness. Power is empathy. Power is forgiveness,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? And those are that's where we're truly powerful in that thing. And so you had made a point earlier about, when we get mad, when something happens to us, we start saying, why this happened to me? Well, and so one of the greatest things we can do for ourselves is forgive ourselves, but B, forgive the people around us, like whatever person that we thought did something to us, right? Forgive them. But the third thing is, and this is where I thought about it, is when we say, why did this happen to me? Who are you talking to? Well, that's your higher power.
Mm-hmm.
So we forget that we need to forgive our higher power because that's part of it. Because if we say the thing, why did this happen to me? Then who are you accusing?
Yeah.
Who are you blaming?
Yeah.
And so that power of forgiveness. I mean, truly in all three aspects, like you haven't gotten through something until you've gotten all three of those aspects truly forgiven. And that is part of like being able to be present, being able to be the great leader that you want to be, right? Being able to be a great parent, the great friend, whatever, the great daughter, all of that comes into that.
Yeah. Any guidance on how to forgive? I know that there's some areas in my life where it's easier or harder
Mhm.
to forgive
Mhm.
and move forward in a productive way.
Oh, sure, right? I mean, we all get stuck in that. This shouldn't have happened. This was terrible. I can't believe that person did it to me. I can't. And I think when you look at it from a different perspective, so if you believe, I believe, like the reason we came here, right, is that to evolve as human beings. Like we're meant to grow and to learn and evolve, and so that we give our best to other people. Well, the reason events happen to us is so that we can learn. That's why they happen to us. So if you change one word, just one word, from this person did this to me to this person did this for me,
Ooh.
everything shifts, right? So the shift becomes, like forgiving, for example, my mom. My mom has never said, I'm sorry. Not once, right? For any of the things that I perceive that she did wrong.
Yep, yep, yep.
Let me give you the list. No, but here's the difference. If I can think that she really did them for me. So when she did something that gave me the experience, that helped me understand how that experience felt, and if I could then, learn from that and grow from that,
Mhm.
she actually did something for me because she propelled me on a pathway to becoming a better human being.
Love
And
that.
so if you can look at it from that perspective, it's much easier. Even if you were saying to your higher power, right? What did you do for me? How is this propelling me forward? What is a lesson here that I learned that's going to give more, to in this lifetime to me and to other people? What is it? What is it that you gave? And so now we've shifted that perspective. And
Yeah.
once we shift the perspective, man, then we can really step into this opportunity to look at the other person and go, wow, wow. Like without that lesson, I wouldn't be who I am today. Wow. Thank you.
That's add that's such a powerful shift, as you say, Sherry. And as you're talking, I'm thinking about the bigger picture commitment. I'm going to be committed to learning and growing and taking away something
Hmm.
from this painful, hurtful, frustrating,
Hmm.
disappointing experience, whatever it was. I have a commitment to I'm not going to become defined by this, right? I'm going to decide what to learn.
Hmm.
The commitment to love yourself, the commitment to I'm going to bring empathy. I'm going to find connection inside of
Hmm.
this experience, and yeah, having that commitment and playing, experimenting with different ways to do so.
Absolutely, man. I mean, you know, this is where I think a great leader is born, right? With all the work, the internal work. I know you believe this, your book and what you teach and those things. And so it's really you can't go lead if you haven't led yourself first,
Hmm.
right? It's that bigger piece. It's really understanding, yourself. And then, as you mentioned, looking in the mirror. and not being mad that you're incomplete, imperfect, right? Just understanding like, oh man, I'm a human. And so part of the human experience is I'm really good at some of this and other stuff I have to grow in.
Yeah.
And it's not like, because you said, like you beat yourself up, like we judge ourselves and then we judge ourselves and then we're in a whole horrific, thing
Yep.
instead of just giving ourselves grace,
Mm.
right? I'll learn from this. I'll grow from this. And sit in that space between, like I call it the recovery gap. So mistake happens, whatever happens. And then our recovery gap's way over here. Well, people go, I need to beat myself up so I can get better. And I say, why? What are you doing when you're beating yourself up? Who are you showing up as? Like, who are you showing up as for other people when they come in your office? Are you present? Are you ready to help? Are you having empathy? Or are you still beating yourself up? How does that show up? But if here's the mistake or here's the event and the recovery gap's like this, and so we make it a really, really small recovery gap, we don't need to beat up. We can just get to the next phase by giving ourselves grace and knowing that because we did that so quickly, we're in a better space for ourselves and other people.
Yeah.
Why do we need to go through hours or days, some people, of beating ourselves up?
Yeah.
We're
Well,
not
and
in the next
yeah,
place.
I like this concept of the recovery gap,
Mm-hmm.
because then we can also begin to assess our progress. Right? The first time I showed up to the gym without the equipment that I needed, right? I was so frustrated. I'm an efficiency person, Sherry. I like to be efficient. I do, and I feel like I'm detailed, and I feel like I should be able to show up to the gym with everything that I need. The first time that happened, right? I was like annoyed for hours, right? And then that recovery gap got shorter over
Mm-hmm.
time. Oh, okay. Well, I've been here before. Let me just figure out the best thing that I can do, given the equipment and the time that I have.
Right.
So so I love that everything you're talking about, it's like dealing with ourselves.
Mm-hmm. But
And
that's what an athlete does, doesn't it? Our biggest
yeah,
opponent's always ourselves. It's not the opponent across the court, it's always ourselves. If we don't have to battle, if we're not battling ourselves, then we're free to go out against our opponent and just focus on that. But if we're having to battle ourselves and the opponent, whew, that's a lot.
yeah, yeah, well said. So, Sherry, for the listeners out there who are not athletes, have no interest in being an athlete, weren't one, aren't one, don't want to become one,
Mhm.
right? How can they learn these lessons that we're talking about?
Well, you don't have to be an athlete to learn a lesson. If you were in choir, if you were in band, if you, you know, um, even if you didn't do any of those things, just the observation of self, just, how do I show up? Like an athlete's always evaluating where I am today, where am I going to be tomorrow? Same thing with you as an individual. Who am I today? The
Yeah.
self-awareness, this evaluation, and not a judgment. Like, let me just say that we don't want to judge. It's more of a curiosity. Like, can we replace judgment with curiosity? And if we can do that, like an athlete would do watching a game film, I'm curious. How can I get faster? How can I get better? Same thing, right? Be curious about how can I improve who I am today? How can I show up better tomorrow? So I think being an athlete helps some people, but being an athlete hurts some people,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I hate to say
Well,
that, but it's
yeah.
true.
Yeah, I mean, well, and we all have the experiences and the circumstance. I mean, we talked about life is bringing us
Mhm.
48 disruptions, right? And all of us have had our journey where we've
Mhm.
been put outside of our comfort zone,
Yeah.
right? And how do we do? What are your strengths in those moments? Yeah, I love you're really good at the powerful word shifts, Sherry, that create a whole new filter and a
Mhm.
whole new perspective. Instead of judgment, it's
Yeah.
curiosity.
Yeah. Well, those are the shifts that, when people come to me and they want me to coach them and they want to become better, perform better, whatever. We have to get a new life philosophy. We have to have new life thoughts. We have to have habit of thought that's going to move them forward. So that habit of thought, if you don't get the right habit of thought, guess what? You're going to be in pain a lot
Mm,
and you're going to suffer a lot.
yeah.
But without that, because every day I choose to get up in the morning and look, I can't run like you do. I wish, oh man, if I could run again, if I could do the things that you do like that, I can get really mad about that.
Yeah.
But I choose to say, what can I do today that's going to bring me joy? What can I do today? If it's 30 minutes of, a yoga workout, I'm thrilled that I can do 30 minutes of a yoga workout. Um, what can I do today that I can't do the things I used to do, but I want to be happy. I want to bring joy into my life. I don't want to suffer. So that's the life habits of thinking that have evolved, from my all my life quakes. I just jumped from, so I think I put more life quakes in my life than life disruptions. So like, let's just throw all these life quakes in at once and let's get them done with. When I was
Okay.
really early in my life, it's like, oh, great.
Check through those 48 as quickly as possible. Get them done.
Get them done, right? But because I choose to be happier. I choose joy. I choose to love myself. That makes a difference. And I think that people don't understand that it's a choice, and you have to work at it, because if you don't have those little, like you said, those little nuances of the way to look at things, you stay stuck.
Yes. Sherry, you have shared with us so many great things today. I'm going to recap for listeners here. Become more comfortable with the uncomfortable,
Mhm.
right? Be looking for your next challenge, your next place to make yourself uncomfortable and learn and grow and create new results. Don't get mad at it, right? The challenge, the circumstances, it's here,
Mhm.
right? And how do you want to be given that that's so? Choose some tools in your toolkit. It could be gratitude. I love that one because the way you talked about it and how it can bring us to a higher energy vibration in a
Mhm.
moment. Empathy, acceptance, connection, forgiveness,
Mhm.
loving yourself.
Mhm.
I love this concept of the recovery gap.
Mhm.
Right? How long is that recovery gap? And if it's long, what is the impact of that to you and to those around you and to the work that you're doing? Right? What are
Mhm.
you committed to in the big picture that would have you say, it's going to be a really short recovery gap?
Mhm.
And then knowing that it's all choice. We can
Yes.
choose how to see, how to respond to the circumstances that are in front of us.
So I appreciate the questions and your attentiveness and, to listening. So thank you so much for that, Amy. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing from your experience and your expertise, Sherry. So much great stuff. Thank you for being on the Courage of a Leader podcast.